India by Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. We as a Technocraft has provided trainings at various levels from kids to professionals. In this pandemic, we have constantly tried to motivate learners at different levels. In this series, we are providing a webinar for data structure with Python. Without wasting time, let us introduce our resource person, Mr. Subir Chakravarti. Sir.
Good afternoon, students.
Good afternoon, sir.
So we are here to deliver you the seminar on webinar on more specifically the webinar on data structure and Python. So without wasting much of the time, I think that we should move towards this topic and should start our proceeding. I think that the most of the students or the candidates here are basically from the technical background, because in the ad also we have written the topic data structure. So I think that most of you have actually seen that. So the topic is data structure, and we have chosen this topic because of some things that we were actually thinking, and we were actually finalizing that what the topic to be chosen. So we have moved towards choosing this topic. And the first and the most important reason for choosing this topic is that this topic is the most important topic of the entire curriculum for the software part. And this topic is the most neglected topic from the syllabus that most of us as a teacher or a student generally don't want to do. And we think that learning a data structure or learning anything about a data structure is not worth. So keeping in mind this concept, we have actually developed this webinar so that we could share some ideas related to this webinar. So I think that most of the students have actually joined the group, the special group that was being formed for this reason. And the chat in this group is actually being stopped due to the reason that I don't want to have unnecessary chat during the meeting. So the chat is being blocked. So, but our WhatsApp chat will be open, and it will be open so that you can go for that and you can ask your question, your doubt, or any matter related to this meeting in this chat. And this WhatsApp group will be open for writing messages just from the participant, and we are actually waiting for your positive queries. So we actually want to introduce that the topic, and as ma'am has introduced ourselves, let me give me a quick recap of that. That the firm Emancipation Edutech Private Limited is, as the name says, that it is a private limited company. It's a company registered under Ministry of Corporate Affairs and MSME, and we have recently got the Startup India recognition from the Department of Industry and Internal Trade. And we were actually doing this type of seminars in the normal environment, but now due to pandemic we have to move from the physical seminar to the webinar sort of things. Now we should start our main topic of concern, and our main topic of concern is data structure. The entire webinar will be divided into two parts. The first part is the data structure, that will be the major part, and the second part will be the Python part. So here we will don't do a rigorous programming on Python basis, because our main topic of concern is data science. But we will try to deal some part of the Python also, because Python is the tool by which we are actually implementing this, and we should have an idea of that also. So I will try to maintain a balance between the tool part and the data structure part. So the core area of a data structure is basically the algorithm design. It is the core area for data structure, and this core area basically deals with the design and analysis of algorithm. This is another part of computer science where most of us as a teacher or a student ignores this part also, because we think that learning a language is sufficient to learn or to do anything. But the fact is that language is only a tool, but if you don't know the concept, if you don't know the background, this tool would be worth of nothing. So we will concentrate on first the algorithm design, and before that we will talk about what is an algorithm is basically. So an algorithm is a step-by-step procedure where we defines a set of instruction that is to be executed as a block, and that particular algorithm must have the specified number of input and output. That means that every algorithm must have a finite number of input, and at the same time a finite number of output also. We cannot have an algorithm that contains infinite number of input and infinite number of output. The first thing is that. The second thing is that the algorithm is basically created independent of the language. That means that if I am creating an algorithm, it's not that it would work on Python, or it would work on C++, or it would work on Java. If I am actually creating a language, an algorithm, that algorithm is independent of the language, means we have to do nothing with the language. It can be a Python, it can be a C++, it can be a Java, anything. But the main concern is that the concept is the main concern. So the thing is that the algorithm is basically divided. Is uh, there any query? Is there any query? Okay. So the algorithm is generally being categorized in these categories, and these categories are: the first the search category, second the short category, third the insert category, then the update category, then the delete category. This is the basic category of an algorithm. So then if I say that what is the characteristic of an algorithm, or what are the parameter based upon which an algorithm need to be developed? See that there is no any particular standard syntax to derive an algorithm. We don't have any type of standard syntax to create an algorithm. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि we have an algorithm procedure, but there are certain things that is to be kept in mind while designing an algorithm. The first and the most important thing is that the algorithm should have unambiguous steps. That means that no two steps should contradict with each other, and no one step would have two meanings. Means the meaning should also be finite, and their contradictions should not be there. The second thing is the input. The second thing is the input. Input is what? An algorithm must have a designated number of inputs and a designated number of output. Means we cannot have an algorithm without a designated number of input and designated number of outputs. The next thing is finiteness. An algorithm must be finite. What is finite? What is the meaning of finite? Finite means the number of instruction or the number of steps in an algorithm cannot be indefinite. It should be definite. It may happen that some algorithm will have say 10 step and other will have 500 step. It may happen, but the number of steps should be finite. We cannot have an algorithm with infinite number of steps. Next thing is your independent. All the steps in an algorithm should be independent with each other. That means that no two steps should be dependent upon each other, so that that algorithm can be executed differently. Now the thing is that since it does not have any well-defined procedure, so we will follow a standard procedure that is being followed by most of the industry people. Acha, why we were actually designing an algorithm? We are actually designing an algorithm due to certain things. What are those things? The thing number one is that an algorithm designing makes the programming process easy. That means that if we are concentrating on the problem, and at the same time if we are concentrating on the syntax, it would be very difficult to concentrate on both the problem and the syntax altogether. Now, if I concentrate on the syntax, then it may happen that we are ignoring the logic. So algorithm basically does what? Na? It concentrates on the logic and it ignores the syntax, so that the programmer is free to decide the syntax at the time of implementation based on the different language. Okay? Once an algorithm is developed, this algorithm is to be compared, this algorithm is to be evaluated based on three basic criteria, and these are known as big O notation, omega notation, and theta notation. Okay? We will not deal with this notations very seriously because we have a very limited time and there are lots of topic that is to be discussed. So we will not do the rigorous analysis of this term, but we will talk some or different type of top words also. For example, if I am talking about a big O notation. So if I am talking about a big O notation, what does this says? It says that if a particular algorithm, if we have a particular algorithm, and if that algorithm have this function fn, and this function fn, for example, is the number of comparison, then the big O notation says that this function fn is being guided by another function gn with a positive multiple of a constant c. So if this particular condition satisfied, if this a particular condition satisfies, that means that we can say that mathematically that fn is in the order of gn. Fn is in the order of gn. So this is a basic concept of big O notation, and this big O notation basically provide us the data that how much time my algorithm will get executed, means what will be the maximum number of instruction that is to be executed. Because at the time of designing an algorithm, the two important factors that always come to any developer's mind, the first factor is the time and the second factor is the memory. There are two factors that affects the thinking, the designing of an algorithm by any type of developer. The first thing is the time and the second thing is the memory. What is the time? Time is how much time my code will require to get executed, or how much time my code will take the execution time. And the memory means what is the total memory that is being required by my program or my algorithm in the RAM. So these two factors are the deciding factors for choosing a particular algorithm. So when we are choosing a particular algorithm, we basically take into account these two concepts, that is the time and the second is the memory. Now, from these two concepts, this concept memory is not very difficult to find the concept, because a memory, finding the amount of memory required is a very easy job. What we have to do is that we have to add all the memory blocks that are to be required in a particular code, and the sum total of the memory required will be the total memory required in the RAM. So it's not a very difficult, or it's not a rocket science to calculate the memory requirement. But the time requirement has a very important aspect, because there are certain things that should be kept in mind. The first thing that is to be kept in mind is that the time that is being required to execute a particular code, it varies with the same code, with a different code in the same computer or in the different computer. That means in the same computer, the same code gets a two different time in two different instruction cycle, and if the different code executed in different computers will also get different time. That means it's not that it's so easy to calculate the time. So calculating the time is a very difficult and complex activity. So basically we don't calculate the time. So basically we don't actually calculate the time. We basically calculate the number of instructions that is to be taken by your program to get executed. Because if I say that an instruction takes say 1 unit of time, if an instruction take 1 unit of time, then if an algorithm A takes 10 unit of time and algorithm B takes 15 unit of time, it is clear that algorithm A is fast and algorithm B is slow. So time calculation is not that we calculate the physical time. Time calculation is the number of instruction that is to be taken, that is to be executed during an execution. इसी को time calculation we say that. So time calculation, we calculate the number of instruction that is to be executed, and these are the parameters to check that what is the actual number of time the actual algorithm gets executed. इसी को हम लोग BIGO notation करते हैं, ठीक है? Now, if I move forward, I think that this part is over. Now we can move towards the next part, and the next part says that uh, there is a technique, and that technique is a very famous technique for algorithm design, and that technique is the divide and conquer technique. Okay, so what is divide and conquer technique? Basically, this is a very old technique. In a divide and conquer technique, what we do is that we divide the entire problem into smaller sub problems and try to solve that problem in half. If the solution is not found, then we further divide the problem into sub problem and then solve it. Then we further divide the problem into some sub problem and then solve it, and then reach to a particular unit from where there is the solution. Means the entire problem is being divided into sub problem, and that sub problem will further be divided into sub problem and further sub problem to reach to a unit, the smallest unit that can be individually be solved. So this type of technique is known as a divide and conquer technique. And in this divide and conquer technique, basically we follow the half process to divide and the half process to combine. Based on this, there are certain popular algorithms, and from those I have selected this one, that is the binary search. This binary search algorithm is a very famous algorithm and a very classical algorithm, and I think that most of you have actually studied this algorithm. This algorithm basically searches for a value in a list of value, and it is an alternative for a linear search. Now, in a linear search, what is the problem? In linear search, the problem is that we have to search the element one by one, and upon searching the elements one by one, upon searching the elements one by one, upon searching the element one by one, one by one, one by one by one, the problem is that if the element that is for which we are looking about, if that particular element is at the end, it is at the end, then what will happen is that lots of comparison will have to done, and therefore the maximum number of comparison that is required for this algorithm will be order of n. That means this algorithm will take the order of n as the maximum number of comparison, and as the value of n increases, this particular algorithm also increases. So this is not a good choice. The good choice is a binary search. A binary search says that if I have an algorithm like this, binary search says that you go to the mid of the array, and at the mid of the array, you try to locate the element for which you are looking about. If that particular element is not available here, then the entire array will again be divided into two sub array. This is the first sub array and this is the second sub array. In the first sub array, this is our initial value L, and this is our upper limit, that is mid minus 1. Okay? In the same manner, if it is not available in this subset, then we have to go to the right hand side subset. In right hand side subset, the value of u would not be changed, but the value of L will be changed, and the value of the L will be mid plus 1. Then again, the algorithm will divide either this array into two halves or this array into two halves, and again try to locate the element. If found, it is successfully found. Not found, it will divide the array, and so on. So this algorithm basically is an implementation of divide and conquer, where the entire problem set is being divided into two halves, then again half, then again half, then again half, till the time we get the required value. So I have created a small program for that in Python. And in Python, now we will talk about something about Python. In Python, anything that is not in this function, not in between the function, is known as main. So in Python, we don't have as such main sort of function is not there. Anything which is not in any function is being regarded that it is in main. So this is a function. The name of the function is bsearch. The entire function gets terminated here. So this part is actually the main part. Since this part is not within any function, therefore it is the main part. So what I have done is that I have created a function and the name of that function is bsearch. Okay? This bsearch function actually takes two parameters. First, the list where we are actually looking for, and second is the val. So val is the value that we are looking of, and a list is the area where the value is to be located. Okay. And please be in this particular webinar till end. We will share the attendance link at something around at 6, something around at 4:30 to 4:45, and that link will required to be filled for the certificate to be given. So please be online till that time so that you could get the certificate, and your feedbacks are also valuable for us. Okay. So the function name is bsearch. This function takes two arguments. The first argument is the list. The second argument is the val. Now what we have done is that we have taken the list size. So for example, this is our list. For example, if this is our list, and if we start from here 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and this is in ascending order because binary search requires a prerequisite, and this prerequisite is that it should be in ascending order, and this is our lower limit and this is our upper limit. And if we divide this, then it would be 9/2. That is 9/2 is something around 4, means 4.5, 4 ही ले लेते हैं. So this is our midpoint, and the algorithm will divide this problem into two sets. This is the first set and this is the second set. Again, this is L and this is new U, and this will be mid -1, and if it lies on the right side, this will be new L, that is mid +1. Okay. So in this form, we are actually got two things. The first, the lower index, the thing that I am saying about L, and this is your U. Now, if L is less than equal to U, that means that if L is less than equal to U, that means that 0 index and n index, if the 0 index is less than equal to n, that means that the probability of finding that particular element in the array exists. The probability is that the particular array is may contain that element. So it would be repeated. Again, we will go for the mid element. We will find the mid element, and after finding the mid element, we will compare with the value. If that particular value matches, then we will say that the value found, and we will return. And if not, it will be checked whether it is greater than or whether it is less than. This part is doing the same thing. If it is greater than, then it would be on your right side or left side based on the sorting standard. And in this way, this binary search is working. So this binary search is basically a clear example of how a particular divide and conquer and data structure based algorithm can work. Okay. Next. The next thing that I want to discuss here is your recursion. This is also a very important and very interesting section. And again, it is also a most neglected one. And the program that we were discussing in the previous slide and the program now I am discussing are the same. But in the previous one, we have used a loop instead of a recursion. And in this one, we are using a recursion instead of a loop. So recursion is a loop, just like a loop. It is a function calling itself. If a function calls itself, it is known as a recursion. If a function calls itself, it is known as a recursion. And like a loop where a breaking condition is required, in a recursion also a breaking condition is required. And this breaking condition says that this particular function will be called till this condition satisfies. So here, if I say that, here if I say that here that if this is the list, this is the initial index, this is the final index, and this is the value. So in our common term, this is the lower index, this is the upper index, this is the value that we need to be searched, and this is the list जहां पर की search करना है. Now, if the lower index is less than the upper index, that simply means that the element that we are looking for is not there. At any moment of time, if you get L is greater than U, that means that the element for which we are looking for is not in the array. The thing that is that the particular format is that this array, this will move in this direction, means lower will move forward and the upper will move backward, and there will meet in a particular place, and the place where they will meet is that particular place where L is equal to U. This is the final place where we can find the element. And if this particular place don't have the element for which we are looking about, that means that the entire binary search is being completed and we are not in a position to find that element in this array. So here we will check the same, and if it does not matches, we will calculate the midpoint. As soon as we calculate the midpoint, we will check the required value with the midpoint. If the value satisfies, then very well, हम लोग कह देंगे कि the value is found. If it is not satisfies, then it will either lie on the left side or in the right side. If it lies on the left side, that means that the L will not be changed, the U will change. That is, here L has no changes, and the value of U is updated. If it lies on the right side, your L will change, U will not change. The upper limit is the same, and the lower limit got changed. And this is the part where the function is called. Okay, any problem? Next, if you have any doubt, please put your query in the chat so that we can basically have an idea that what are the things that we have missed, है ना? So इसीलिए you put it in the chat also. ठीक है? Next is your list data structure. In Python, there are two categories of data structure there. The first category is your linear, and the second category is your non-linear. Linear and non-linear basic difference is that in linear data structure, all the things are in linear format. That means one after another, like array, like linked list, like stack, like queue, that matrix. They are all in linear in nature. And a non-linear means when a group of element is being linked with other group of elements, and that group of element get further linked with two or more group of elements, then this type of representation is basically known as a non-linear data structure. So in a non-linear data structure, the basic things are a binary tree, a heap, a hash table, or a graph. These are the non-linear data structure. And the linear data structure are array, linked list, stack, queue, and matrix. Okay. Now, the Python is a language which also provides its own set of data structures also. This is a language where it provides its own set of data structure also. And the entire data structure program can be implemented by simply using this three, and one I have not written, that is the array. So the Python 4 data structure is sufficient to represent all type of data structure activity using a Python. And these are the list, the tuple, the dictionary, and the array. So these four data structures of the Python are required. They are used for writing any type of data structure programs in Python. Now, in Python, array is not like that it is in any other language. In any other language, an array is basically a data type. But in Python, it's not a data type, it's a package. It's a package that is being derived. So in Python, we will require a package for that, and the name of the package is the array package. So in order to declare a package array in Python, we will require to have a package. That means we will require to use this import array. This is the name of the package, and using this package, we will have to create an array like this, array Then within that square bracket, we have to provide the values of the array, and then the data type indicator which indicate the type of data values this particular array will hold. So this is the technique of creating an array in Python. Okay? Not the way that we are familiar about, where in C, C++ or Java we use the data type, we use the array name, we use the size. These all things are not there here. Okay? So this is an array, and the thing that is, then an array is a homogeneous collection like we have done in C, C++ and in Java. Here also it is an homogeneous collection. Here it is also an integer index based collection, where the index starts from 0 and ends in n-1. So the first index of an array will always start with 0, and the last index of an array will be always at n-1. So the first index will start from 0 and the last index will end in n-1. So this is the range, this is the block, this is the area within which an array gets is their values. Okay? So the basic operations that are associated with an array is divided into these 5 categories. There are other operations also, but we have tried to sum up those in a single category, and that is your traverse. The first is the traverse. Traverse means to visit an array elements in a linear fashion, in a more scientific fashion. The second is the insertion. Insertion means to insert a value within an array. Okay. Third is your deletion, to delete the value from the array. The fourth is the searching, where we can search a particular value from an array and update to change the particular value in a particular index of an array. So these are the basic operations associated with an array in Python or in any other language. Okay. Next, our term is your list. So we have actually talked about this list one. So list is just like an array, but the basic difference between list and array is that list is your heterogeneous and array is your homogeneous. Okay? What does this mean? This means that in the case of a list, the elements are of different data type. But in the case of an array, the elements are of the same type. Means the collection of the same type of element is known as an array, and the collection of a different type of element just like an array is known as a list. So list is a basic data type in Python, but array is not a basic data type in Python. Please note this. In an array, we don't have, in Python, an array is not the basic data type, but in Python, list is the basic data type, which is a heterogeneous collection, and an array is a homogeneous collection. Okay. So there are various methods that are associated with a list, but there are few which are more important. From them, I have noted some. For example, this one. This is length. This will give you the length of an array. The length of an array means the total number of element in an array. So this particular element, this particular function applied with an element will give the total number of element in the list. In the same manner, this is a plus operator, which is a concat operator. That means that it will concat two lists and it will give you the concatenated value. That is, the concatenated value will be what? The concatenated value of this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Next is your this star operator. So any list into star, if I write any list into star 3, that means that particular list element will be repeated 3 times. So agar L ka value hai 1, 2, 3, and if I write list star 3, I would get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay? In the same manner, this is an membership operator. A membership operator means it will check whether 3 is the part of this, 3 is the member of this list or not. If 3 is the part of this list, then it will give you true. And if 3 is not the part of the list, it will give false. Since 3 is the part of this particular list, it will give true. But if it was 13, so 13 is not the part of the list, so it would give false. Okay? Next is your this one. We can print the element of a list straightforward by using the for loop. For example, if I write for a in L, print a, it will give one by one element. So if the list L has element 1, 2, 3, it will print 1, then 2, and then 3. Okay? Next. Tuples. In Python, there are two types of data type. One is mutable, and one is immutable. So if this is a block, and if this block has a value 20 and this block has a value 40, and if I say a is equal to 20 and b is equal to 40, that means a will point to this block and b will point to this block. Okay, no problem. But if I say after that a is equal to 400, then it would not be that 20 will be deleted और यहाँ 4 आ जाएगा. This is known as immutable. If 40 gets deleted, if 20 gets deleted and the 400 will be there, it is known as immutable. And if it is not get deleted, but a new memory area will be allocated, and in that new memory area, a will again point to it, and the previous value will be remain there only, then it is known as immutable. So in Python, the data types are immutable. Okay? These data types means your int, float, these are immutable. Tuple is an immutable series data structure. Okay? Right. There are three types of series data structure available in Python. The first is your list, the second is your tuple, the third is your dictionary, and the fourth is your array. Okay? From these, tuple is that data structure where the values cannot be modified. That means it would be created just like a list, but if we modify the value in the list, it is possible. But if we modify the value in the tuple, it's not possible. For example, if I have a list L and if the values are 1, 2, 3, and if I want to write this L0 is equal to 20, it would work, no problem, because it is list. But if this was a tuple, tup, and if I have written like this, and we have to write tup 1 is equal to say 200, it's an error. Why it's an error? Because in a tuple, modifications are not allowed. In tuples, we don't go for modifications, but in a list, the modifications are allowed. Okay? Next. Dictionary. This is also a very prominent, very useful data type in your Python. And this data type is just like a associative array in JavaScript or in your PHP. Why I am saying it associative array? Because in these two languages, we have a array, and that array has a string as an index. Till now, those arrays that we have studied till now contains of an integer as an index. And if that integer is being replaced by a string or any other object, then we got a dictionary. So in a dictionary, what happens is that in a dictionary, these values are like this. There is a key, and that key is being separated by a value by a colon. There is a key separated by a value by a colon. There is a key separated by a colon with a value. So a dictionary is a special type of data structure where we have a key value pair. The entire data structure elements are being organized in the form of key value pair, where key is a unique value and a value can be anything. It can be a repeated value, it can be a copied value, anything. Value पे कोई rule नहीं है, but a key should have a unique. That means that in a dictionary there cannot be two key with the same name, but in a dictionary there cannot be the value. There can be a values with the same. ठीक है? Now whenever we are designing a dictionary, the dictionary elements are to be accessed in the same manner as we go for a list or we go for a tuple. For example, if this dict is a tuple, then we have to write dict, and within square bracket we have to write index. But since in a dictionary the proper index is missing, then the key is actually being treated as an index. So here the name is the key. So I will write here name. As soon as I will write name here, then this will automatically give the value for the name, and the value for the name is Zara. So I will get Zara. Okay. So in a dictionary, we have a key value pair, and the key, as soon as we put a key with a dictionary, we will get the value associated with that key. As soon as we put a key there, we will get the value associated with that. Okay. Next. Next is your next is your linked list. Okay. So actually this topic I want to explain you, so I have skipped those topics. Actually we don't have much time, so I have skipped those topics and I directly come to this topic. That this topic is creation of a linked list. So I think that most of you knows what is a linked list is, and if you don't know, I actually want to recap you what is a linked list. Linked list is just like an array. The basic difference between an array and a linked list is that a linked list, we actually create this list as a dynamic list. What is the meaning of the word dynamic? The meaning of the word dynamic is that the element in the list, as soon as they get entered, their size grows, and the elements from the list, as soon as they get deleted, their size decreases. That means it provides better memory utilization as compared to your array. In the case of array, it's mostly size is fixed. The blocks are fixed. They are in contiguous locations. Any modification in a block will affect the other blocks, the subsequent blocks also. But in the case of linked list, all the blocks are separate, independent of each other, can be physically anywhere. They will be logically adjacent to them, and any modification on that particular block will not actually affect the entire system. So we basically support the use of linked list and in the place of an array. Okay? So in the case of a linked list, this is a perfect example of creating a linked list. So in creating a linked list, we would require two types of object. The first object will be of type node, and the second object will be of type senior linked list. Okay? Now, what is this? This particular thing is your constructor. In Python, underscore init underscore, this is a technique to describe a constructor. So constructors in Python are being declared as underscore init underscore, and they will take at least one parameter, and that one parameter is the self. Self means the inbuilt this pointer that is being passed in the case of C++ or in the case of Java, that inbuilt pointer is the self. So if any particular object calls that particular class object, then that value will be passed through this self. The second one is your data value. What is the data value? Data value means the value that actually I want to insert into the block. It is the actual value that I actually want to insert into the block. So it is the data value. Now, what I will do is that I will put this data value in the actual head node, because this is my head node, and its next value, that is pointer, it's made to be null. Now we have come to the single linked list. It is a single linked list. Single linked list means there are two types of linked list. One is a single linked list, other one is a double linked list. In the case of single linked list, we have only one pointers. In the case of single linked list, we have only one pointers. In the case of double linked list, we have two pointers, and we have two pointers. Pehla pointer for the forward, and the second pointer is for the backward. This is the double linked list structure. This is the single linked list structure. The structure that we are actually discussing is the single linked list structure. A single linked list structure must require a header pointer. The header pointer is that pointer that points to all the other pointers. Okay? So if this is a linked list, the main node is the head node or the first node or the start node. So we have to maintain a head pointer, and that head pointer will point to this particular one. So this head is basically the name of that pointer itself. This head is basically the name of the pointer itself. So this head is basically providing the pointer to this particular area. So what is happening is that we are creating an object of the same. We are creating an object of the same, and the object name is your list one. Okay, so the object name is your list one. Then what I am doing is that I am providing the head val, that is the first value, into this list. So list one is dot head val is equal to node none, mon. So a node is being created and the value of the node is mon, and it is being inserted as the head node of the linked list. Now I am creating two more nodes. The first node is E2 and the third node is E3. And what I will do is that I will link E2 with the list 1 and the list 3 and the E3 with the list 2. So this list 1 is being linked with E2 and this E2 is being linked with E3. So the entire linked list gets created. ये बना मेरा entire linked list. ठीक है? Next. Next, traversing a linked list. Traversing means the meaning of the word traversing is to traveling in a linked list in a particular order, to traveling in a data structure in a particular. हाँ, so traversing means to visit the nodes in a particular fashion so that all the nodes get visited and no nodes get visited twice. This particular structure that we have studied in the previous one also have two parts. This is the node part, ये भी पढ़े थे, and this is the uh, single linked list part. Okay, so this node part has a constructor init constructor having a data value and having a next value to be none. That means that this will by default create a node with a next pointer none. Okay, and this is known as our head node. Okay, this is not our head node. And now we are creating a class known as single linked list where we have defined a constructor here. Now this is the list print statement. That means if I want to print all the elements in a list, traverse all the elements of the list, we have to go for this particular statement. What I have done is that I have taken the first object from the linked list in print val, and then from the loop I am taking all the other objects from the list till the time I am not getting none. So till the time I am not getting none, I am getting one values from the list, and that value is being put in print val, and then the value at the print val get printed, and then we will go for the next value. So this is an example of basically a traverse. This is an example of traversing. Why it is traversing? इसको traversing क्यों करते हैं? इसको traversing इसलिए करते हैं because all the elements in the node in the linked list are being accessed one by one. Therefore it is known as traversing. So here what we have done is that we have taken the first element, the head element in a print val, and then till the time I don't get the none value, this particular values get repeated and it would move to the next location. Again it would be checked. If it is not null, move to the next location, and so on. Here what we have done is that here we have created a list, S linked list, and in S linked list the first object at the head node have the value mon. Now we have created two nodes, one is E2 and the other is E3, and we will add E2 in the next val of the list. That is, this is not the name of the list, and here we have created another node, that is E1, and in the second one we will create another one, that is the E3. That is the E3. Okay, the value of E1 is already given as true, Tuesday. The value of E3 is already given as the value Wednesday, and this is an example of traversing in a linked list. Okay, next, insertion in a linked list. Okay, insertion will require you to set various pointers for the linked list, because if we can't assign those, it would be very difficult for us. So what we have done is that we have created a node, and in the previous occasion also, a constructor, INIT constructor, having two parameters. One is the self, other is the data val. The data val is being assigned to the first position, and the next val is null, because in a linked list, if we have only one value, the next value will be null. Okay, and this value is the data val. Okay, next what we have done is that we have created a single linked list, and in single linked list class we have created a constructor, and the name of that constructor is again INIT constructor, and here we have actually initialized the head value as null. Now first thing is that we have to insert at the beginning. This is the code to add at the beginning. So how to insert at the beginning? Nothing required. Create a node and name that node as new node. As soon as we will create a node and name it as a new node, the value of the new node is to be supplied to this one. That means if this is our linked list, and if I have created a new node, this is our new node, so this particular pointer should point to the list. So we have written here new node dot next val is equal to self dot head val. So this will be pointed to here, and from now this won't be treated as the head. This would be treated as the head. Therefore self dot head val is equal to new node. So this is an example to show how to insert a particular element at the beginning of the list. Okay. Now again we have created an object. Again we have created a node, and we have put those nodes all together. Okay, now I think that we have reached to the center point of our discussion. I want to ask you, is there anything that you are finding difficult, or if you have any type of queries on this matter, you can please unmute your mic and can talk with me directly, so that I also have an idea that what is the type of student present here, and is the thing that I am delivering is fruitful from them or not. Okay, so please unmute yourself and you ask any type of question related to this, so that I can more specifically define the things that you are looking for. Hello, 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 hello. No one has any doubt? Saurav, Rishabh, Rahul. Please unmute yourself. I have given you the permission. Please unmute yourself and ask any question. Saurabh, any question?
No, sir.
Anyone? Okay. So we can move forward. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now how to insert at the end of the linked list? Now we will decide how to insert at the end of the linked list, because we have understood how to insert at the beginning. Now how to insert at the end of the linked list. So in order to insert at the end of the linked list, the first thing we have to create is to create a class. The name of this class is node. The name of this class is node, as we are doing in all the programs. This is our constructor, as we have already discussed. This is the value that is being passed at the time of creating an object. And since this will be called for the first time for a particular object, the next pointer of that particular object will be by default none. None means here the none, the word none is actually the word null in a C and C++ and in Java. So the word null is same as none that we have studied so far. So we have studied none. So none and null are the same thing. In all the other languages, it is null, and here it is none. Now here the second thing is that we have created a single linked list. Okay? This structure is a single linked list structure. Here again, we have created a constructor, and the head value of this particular object is none. Why it is head value null? Because the time the linked list will be created, it would be empty. Now I am created one that is the at end method. This at end method, just like at the beginning method, takes two parameters. The first parameter is this pointer, the self pointer, and the second parameter is your new data. New data is the data that is to be inserted at the end of the linked list. This is the data that is to be inserted at the end of the linked list. So I have created a new data, that is new node is equal to node new data. So a new node is being created. Now we have not put that new node at the end of the list. We have already created this, only created this. Now to do that, what we have to do is that first we have to check that whether the list is empty or not. If the list is empty, then it would be easy to assign it at the first node only, because if it is empty, then the node itself is the beginning and itself is the last node. So what we have done, we are checking here. One second. So now if it is at the end, and if it is at the end, if it is at the end, so if there is no node, we will put it there only. Okay? If there is a node, then we have to go to the last. Okay? So now we have to add at the end. So how to add at the end? In order to add at the end, what we are doing is that we're taking this value, this first value. For example, if this is your linked list, if this is a linked list, okay, if this is my linked list, and this is my linked list, okay, and this is our node last. So I am treating this one as the last, as a name is last, and I will repeat this to the end. So I will write here last, and this will be till the end. So if last has a null value, not null value, this will be the last, this will be the last. That means that here I will have to stop. So this will repeat till the place we don't reach to the last one. सो यहाँ पर लास्ट में आ रहा है, ठीक है। नाउ एट द लास्ट नोड, सिंस दिस हैज अ नल वैल्यू, हियर दिस न्यू नोड विल बी इंसर्टेड. The new node that we have created here, this new node will automatically get inserted here. Okay. Now in the same manner, if I have to insert at any position, acha, now one more thing, in order to run this thing, what we have to do is that we have to create a node. We have to create a node, and that particular node will be the head node. Then two more nodes are created, E2 and E3. So we have created like this. This is our Monday, this is our Tuesday, and this is our Wednesday. So we have created this all. Now we have to add at the end. So I have called this method list at end. So list at end, so this will be our new node, and here it would be inserted. Okay. Okay. Next is inserting in between the two data nodes. To insert in between two data nodes. Okay. So for example, if we have this type of list, 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 and if we want to add or insert an element between two data nodes, that means in between this, what are the things that we have to do? So first we will deal with these things non-programmatically, and then we will deal these things with programmatically. So if I want to insert in between them, the first and the most important thing that I have to do is that I have to start from the beginning, and I have to reach to the place till the time where that particular position is not found. This particular thing is being done by a loop. So as soon as the loop will repeat, I will stop at the place where the position is there. For example, is this the position where I have to insert? Now I have to create a new node. Here we will create a new node. After creating a new node, this particular node should point this particular new node, and this node, the address should be like this. Means this will point to this one, and this will point to this one. So if this takes place, then this is the way by which we are actually inserting an element into the linked list at any position. For that, the first thing I have done is that I have written a method, and the name of that method is in between. This in between method is taking a middle node and a new data. Middle node is that node which will be treated as the point to get inserted. So if that particular user insert 20, that we have to insert 40 after 20, then this 20 is the middle node, this 20 is the middle node, and this 40 is the new node. So I have to insert 40 in 20. How to do that? If the middle node is none, if the middle node is null, it is not there, then it will print an error that the node is not there, and it would get terminated. If the middle node is not null, if the middle node is not null, that means the middle node is there. Then the first thing, we will create this new node. This new node will be created. Then what I will do is that the new node next value will be the next node, middle node next value. This is the middle node. This middle node next value is this one, and this node next value is this one. So this will point to here, and so this will point to this. And then the middle node next value will again point to new node. Means what is that? That this is our basically the middle node. This is the middle node. This is the middle node. This is our new node. Okay, this is our new node. First, the new node have to be created. Okay, first, this is our new node, new data. This is our end node. This is our middle node. First, the new data will be created. New data is being created. Next, the middle node pointing to this node, the address should be holded by this new node. This is being done, and this is being done. So this is the way of inserting a value at any particular place. Okay. Next. In the same manner, we can do the remove also. Now, without wasting time, we reach to the stack portion. A stack is also a very important data structure in programming, because most of the data structure problems are basically associated with, their solutions are basically associated with stack and queue. Most of them are associated with stack and queue. The basic difference between stack and queue is that in a stack we have one end open structure, therefore it is known as LIFO, and in queue it is double-ended open structure, therefore it is known as FIFO, first in first out and last in first out. In a stack there is only one position from where we insert and delete, that is known as is your pop and push. And in your queue there are two portions, one portion is insert and the other portion is delete, and we insert at the rear and we delete from the front. We basically insert at the rear and we delete from the front. So this is the basic difference between a stack and a queue. So a stack basically associated with four types of basic operations. The first operation is your push, that is known as the insert. Pop, delete, then is your display, and then peep. These are the four basic operations associated with a stack. These are the four basic operations that are associated with a stack. Push means to insert, pop means to delete, display means to print, and peep means to see that a particular position has a value or not. Right? So push and pop will both apply on top. That means we will insert from the top and delete from the top. Display means to display the content of the stack from the top to the bottom. That means whenever we will display the content of the stack, the content of the stack should be displayed from the top to the bottom. Means we will start from the top and end at the zero. And peep means to any other position. So in this four operation, we basically have this stack. This is our stack, and this is our constructor. This is our list. We are actually using list to implement stack, and this is the add method. The add method means the same push, that is the add method. In the add method, what we have done is that if the data value is not in the list, then we are appending it. In your Python, we don't actually require to maintain the top, because the list has a method to push and pop both. So if I say append, I mean to say it is push. If I append, I mean to say it is push. And if I say pop, I mean to say it is pop. That means if I go for pop, it will act as a stack pop. If I go for push, it will act for a stack push. So here what I am doing is that if the data value is not in the stack, then what I am doing is that I am actually inserting that value, that is appending that value into the stack, and then I am returning true. If it is not there, I am returning false. In the same manner, what is a peep? Peep means not to modify the content, only to visualize the content on the top of the stack. So I am accessing the stack top content, stack -1. You all know that in a list, if this is a list, it has two types of index. One index in this form and the other index is in this form. Other index is in this form. So this index is your backward index. So it will be at the top. So this is your top position. So this is your top position. You have two ways. Either you can get the length of the stack and you can get the top position, or straightforward you can go for -1. -1 will give you the top position. Now what I'm doing is that I am creating an object of the type stack. Then I am adding the value Monday, then again the value Tuesday. So the first value is Monday, the second value is Tuesday. We are here only. If I say peep, I will get Tuesday. Again, what I'm doing is that I'm adding Wednesday, then I'm adding Thursday. Then if I am calling the method pip, I will get Thursday. है ना? And if I use pop, the Thursday will be deleted and the top will be Wednesday. If again the pop is called, this will be deleted and I will again be at this particular place and so on. So this is the way of implementing a stack in a Python. Next, this is your pop. This is your pop. Very easy to implement. First, we have to check, this is your pop, huh? First, we have to check that whether the stack is empty or not, because if that particular stack is empty, we can't do anything. If that particular stack is empty, we can't do anything. And if that particular stack is non-empty, then only we can do that. And what we can do that, we will write return self.stack.pop. If I write self.stack.pop, as soon as I write self.stack.pop, what I will get? I will get the particular element at from the top of the stack back. Okay. Next is our queue. Very important portion. This is also, it is first in first out. Queues are of three types. The first queue is your normal queue where we can insert at the end and delete from the beginning. The second queue is your circular queue. And what is a circular queue means? A circular queue basically a circular queue is like this. In a circular queue, what happens is that uh, after inserting the values, if this particular thing is filled, then we will not say that the queue is full. We will again come back to this particular place. If it is non-empty, if it is empty, we will come here and again we will start from here. This is known as your circular queue. Okay. There is another thing that is known as a DQ. What is a DQ? DQ full form is the double-ended queue. Double-ended queue means we have two ends open, and DQ consists of two types. One is input restricted and the other is output restricted. In input restricted DQ, what happens is that we will insert at the rear only, but we can delete from both the end. That is known as input restricted. And delete restricted DQ is that where we can delete from the front only, but we can insert from both the side. Okay. This example, this particular example that is being presented here is a normal queue. A normal queue with class and object. This is your constructor part. This is the list by which we are actually creating a queue. Here we are having a method add to queue, and this add to queue is just like an insert method. I have checked here the value to be added is available in a list or not. If it is not available, then it will be inserted in the particular list, and if it is available, it will return false. Okay, and this will give you the size of the queue. Okay. Next. In this way we have please wait for a while. You will shortly get your attendance list so that your attendance and your certificate could be generated. Once you submit the attendance list, you will automatically get the certificate by today or tomorrow itself. Okay. And you have to submit that attendance, and after submitting that attendance, you will get the certificate by today or by tomorrow. And please provide your positive feedbacks, and these all are your double linked list also. Achha, what is your double linked list? In a double linked list, in the place of maintaining a single pointer, what we are doing is that we are maintaining two pointers. We are maintaining 2 points. The first pointer points at the beginning, and the second pointer is the first is in the forward direction, the second is in the backward direction. So here we have two types of pointers. This is your previous pointer, this is your next pointer, this is your previous pointer, this is your next pointer. and the last node has a none at the next pointer, and the first node has none at the previous pointer. Okay, this double linked list provide you a better flexibility, because if any of the link get broken, we can access the any other element from the list by using the second pointer. Okay, there is a program of this also available in with me, shared on your screen. Please have a look on that. What I have done is that I have created two pointers. The first pointer is your next pointer. The second pointer is your previous pointer. Both the pointers are null by default, and I am providing a data one by which you can do the needful. The attendance link is being shared. Please log into that and fill up your attendance and submit the same. Now this part is your double linked list actual class. This double linked list actual class consists of a constructor, and the head means the first one, and the first one has a value none. Okay, now in the second part what I'm doing is that I am writing a method. The name of the method is push. It's not that the name is push. In the this word push is for stack only. So this method is actually your insert method, add method, push method, any name you can give it. What I'm doing is that I am adding a particular value there. How to do that? I am created an object, and that particular object, the new node next part, is pointing to that particular head pointer, and if the head pointer is none, that will be again pointing to this, and this is how it is working. In the insert part, what is being done in the insert part, define the insert method to insert the element. So how it is being done? Here I am taking three parameters. One is the implicit parameter, that is the self parameter. The other two parameter is your new val and the previous node parameter. New node is none. If the new node is none, it returns none. That means no need to add anything. Wait for 1 second. Wait for 1 second. Please wait. I am allowing. Please wait. Okay. In this form, the list is also there. So I think that I have touched most of the topics, है ना? And here are a few more topics that actually one. No, you don't have to do the attendance in the chat. You have to click on the link and have to fill the form there. No need to write +1 or +2 or +3 there. You have to click on the link and have to do the chat. No, I think that it would work. It would work. I don't think that it won't work. हाँ, link is working. Link is working. So we are actually concluding our session, and for that, actually, I again want to call the ma'am so that the other proceedings can be done. Okay. So, Yuvraj, I think that you have text some question. You please text that in the group also. I will personally deal to it. Okay. Okay. So, so ma'am, you can start. Ma'am, you can start.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Thank you, sir, for give us
And
your precious time.
and
And
you can
thank you,
open.
Ranjan sir, for organize this beneficial webinar. And thanks everyone, and thanks our media team. Okay. Thank you, students.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir, and
Okay.
thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Okay. Bye.